So here we have a circle object with a radius property and two methods that are defined on its prototype. We have the draw method and the duplicate method. Now let's imagine tomorrow we're going to add a square object here, and that square object should also have a duplicate method with the exact same implementation. We don't want to repeat this implementation. In other words, we don't want to define a square constructor and then redefine the duplicate method on the prototype of this constructor. So square.prototype.duplicate, we don't want to do this, right? Instead, we want to use inheritance. So we can define a shape object and put this duplicate method there, and then have circle and square inherited from the shape object. So let me show you how to do this. First, I'm going to delete everything about a square, because once you learn how to inherit a circle from a shape, you can easily have square inherit from the shape object. So delete. Now let's define this shape constructor. Next, we want to move this duplicate method and put it on the prototype of the shape. So shape.prototype.duplicate. Okay? So to make sure we're on the same page, let's define two objects here. One is a shape, and the other is a circle. New circle with radius of 1. Now back to the console. So here's our shape. It inherits from this object, which we call shape base. And in shape base, we have the duplicate method. And as you can see, shape base inherits from this object, which is our object base, the root of all objects in JavaScript. Okay? We have the exact same structure in our circle. Let's verify that. So we have a circle. Circle has a radius. It inherits from, let's call this circle base. In circle base, we have the draw method. And as you can see, circle base inherits from object base. So here's a visualization of what we have in memory. We have this C object, which inherits from circle base, which is essentially circle.prototype. And this circle base inherits from object base. Similarly, we have S, which inherits from shape base. And this is the same object referenced by shape.prototype. And this object inherits from object base. Now, to set up inheritance here, we want to have circle base inherit from shape base. How do we do this? It's really easy. In JavaScript, we have a method for creating an object with a given prototype. So object.create, look at the argument here. That's the object to use as a prototype. So we want a new circle base object that inherits from shape base instead of object base, right? Now shape base is shape.prototype, right? So here we pass shape.prototype, and this returns an object that inherits from shape base. Now all we have to do is to use this object as the prototype for our circles. So we reset circle.prototype to this new object. So before this line, our circle base or circle.prototype was like this. So circle.prototype was an object that inherited from object.prototype, which we call object base, right? So this was the implicit relationship. Now we change circle base or circle.prototype to a new object that inherits from shape.prototype or shape base, okay? So let's delete this line. Now save the changes back in the console. Let's look at what we have. So here's our shape. Shape inherits from shape base. Here we have the duplicate method, and shape base inherits from object base. So far, so good. Now let's take a look at the circle. So circle inherits from circle base. Now don't worry about this shape here. This doesn't mean that this is the shape object. This is a circle base object. What you see here is the parent for that object. Let me explain what I mean. So let's expand this. In circle base, We have the draw method. Perfect. Now circle base inherits from shape base, and that's why we have shape here. Let's look at the prototype. Look, this is shape base. We have the duplicate method, and shape base inherits from object base. So now with all this, the circle object has a draw method. It also has the duplicate method that it inherits from the shape object. So this is prototypical inheritance in action.